This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
All right, my friend Dan Hardle, thank you for joining the podcast today.
You bet.
My little business side project fun thing I'm trying to get done.
Anything for you, Mark, you know.
Thanks, buddy. So some of you guys may or may not know, Dan is my neighbor. He's my first favorite neighbor that I have in my neighborhood, and we go over to his pool all the time.
Better stay that way.
Absolutely, dude. So what's new?
Always something to work on.
Yeah.
You know, back from a couple trips, trying to plan a few more trips, balance work and having a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
You know? So, but as far as work goes, in the process of balancing current verticals, what our core business is, and growing a couple other lines of business along the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really busy, actually. We've been busier now this year. The last 2 years, I've been busier than I have the first even 3 years when I started my business.
Yeah.
Just trying to find new ways to monetize and build those verticals.
Yeah. So tell us, what's your business?
Technically speaking, no one understands it, but I'm really an FMO or an IMO in the insurance world. So they call it a field marketing organization or an insurance marketing organization. And in a nutshell, insurance companies create products, right? Policies, and they actually need business. They want policy holders. So they contract with my firm, and we actually go out and get them the business. Mm-hmm. So in our world, it's even in the people, when they think insurance, they typically think of home and auto, something like State Farm, Allstate. Mm-hmm. Those products are really easy to understand and sell. They're very commoditized. Mm-hmm. So in that world, you get auto coverage or something, it's 50, 150. Like the coverages that you get are set. So it doesn't matter if you go with Geico or State Farm or whatever, is all interchangeable. Yeah. Some things change, like how you get service and do you have an agent or is it online service or how they handle claims. There's things behind the scenes that make that different. But in my world, it's completely different. So we focus on the senior marketplace. So most of our bread and butter is Medicare products. And then we also do some life insurance and annuity products, things like that. But it's all tailored around a person who is retiring.
Right.
So, and with those products, it's really different. It's not like this transaction like other goods and services. I always say that, the insurance companies hate us. We're a necessary evil, though, because when we go to sell a product, a consumer needs to check, 20 different things and do a whole needs analysis to see which of these companies and products is the right one. Mm. So essentially, insurance company makes a product. It's a very complicated product, or can be. So they have to go to us as kind of an intermediary insurance distributor. We get a contract to go distribute. We have to go find insurance agents and agencies, onboard them, credential them, teach them, oversee compliance, all that, and actually get them selling and marketing the products in the hands of the consumers.
Right.
So it's a really unique business.
Yeah, and you do most of your sales come in through agents, right?
Yeah. So we have a couple different, obviously models. So we have regular agents, we can have an agent in Oklahoma who has a brick and mortar, PNC shop on Main Street, and they can contract with us, and we'll teach them, train them, help them so that they can, maybe they're selling home and auto, and 30 of their clients also need help with Medicare or life insurance or something else. Mm. We'll contract that person, train them, teach them, and then they can market the product to their clients. So
most of the agents sell multiple insurance products, and yours is just kind of like another product line inside their arsenal?
Both. So we have a lot of specialists. So I would actually tell you that the majority of our revenue actually comes from agents who really specialize in selling Medicare products and occasional life and annuity. Just because, like everything, if you're specialized in something and you really know what you're doing, you're going to do a better job. Yeah. Consumers know when you know what you're talking about. Yeah. And when you're that kind of specialist, you sell a lot more volume. Yeah. So I would say that the majority of our revenue comes from agents who are specialized in selling Medicare. Some of our revenue comes from people who are just kind of dabbling, kind of picking it up as a line, selling multiple products, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so in your world, who are your big vendors? Because those will be names that a lot of people recognize.
Yeah. So United Healthcare, Humana, Aetna, Cigna, Centene, which is probably one of the biggest companies people have never heard of. It's WellCare. Yeah. And then Anthem, Devoted Health, Select Health here locally in Utah, Molina, Regents, so all those blues, Florida Blue. So we have a lot of these big insurance companies nationwide.
Yeah. And you mostly deal with them, like your day-to-day, right? You're dealing with them, and then your agents are selling the products, so you negotiate with them.
Yeah. So, and essentially as that kind of intermediary, that middleman, so to speak, I mean, they're giving us their contract. Now, first of all, the carriers, they really do set the rule of the game, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a contract that my company has with them. You know, they'll each issue me out a 70-page, you know, legal agreement. Here's your, you know, agreement as a vendor to go distribute their product for them. But yeah, essentially, I deal a lot with different reps at each organization. So a lot of times I'm dealing with, you know, whether it be C-level, D-level leadership, you know, regional vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and even sometimes all the way down to local broker managers and directors. But we deal with a lot of their reps throughout the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's common that with one vendor relationship, we'll just take like, you know, I don't know, Humana for an example. I might have 55 different contacts at just Humana that I deal with, depending on where my brokers are selling, from my national reps all the way down to regional and local reps.
Right.
Something like that. So as far as relationships and relationship building and vendors to keep track of, you know, it's easy to say we probably have somewhere between 700 to 1,000 relationships that we have to manage.
Yeah.
On the carrier side.
Right.
Before we even go to market with our agents.
Yeah, it's wild. A lot of layers to it. Mm-hmm. So how long have you been doing it for?
Got in the business as an agent in 2007.
Okay.
So it's been 15 years since I got my insurance license.
Yeah. When did you take the leap and start it?
So I got in the business selling as an agent first, right? I was that guy that just found out you could actually sell a policy and get paid as a producer. So I did that. And then really it was 2011 where I filed, you know, for an LLC. And it was about 2012 that I really started running with it and going. Yeah. So I would say now I've really been in business for 10 years as far as my agency, distribution, all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So this is kind of like phase 2 of my career where phase 1 was getting into understanding even this industry, that it was a business, that I could sell and produce those policies, and then getting to that next level of, you know, getting a contract for distribution and stuff like that. It's been 10 years.
So do you remember the moment you decided to go at it on your own, start your own business?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was actually like I was an independent business owner even when I was an agent, mm-hmm. right? So it was, and of course, you know, everybody listening to this podcast will remember, you know, 2008 was not a good year for a lot of people, right. Or 2009, right? So, but yeah, it was 2007 that I got my insurance license, and actually, I was doing door-to-door sales, working at Comcast. Great gig, by the way. You know, it's I was going to college, so here I was, like, you know, 22 years old or whatever, and 23, started working at Comcast. Worked part-time, doing those door-to-door sales, got great benefits. I mean, making anywhere from 80 to 100K a year working part-time going to college. Yeah. Not a bad gig. Yeah. Wife was working all that. But really what happened is after I've been selling door-to-door for a few years, I had a buddy that got me into the insurance world. I say he's a buddy. He's one of my agents now. Yeah. And he's really turned into a guy that I really admire. He's my mentor, everything else. But he would outsell me at Comcast. And I was pretty young, dude. I was, you know, I had the world by the tail. I thought it was great. And this old guy would beat me at sales every month. And it really pissed me off. Yeah. He's better than me. And after a while, I kind of befriended him. And he was the one that kind of said, Dan, I don't even care about this job. And he's like, I just work here for benefits and for the stock options. And it blew my mind because I was making $100,000 a year. Yeah. And he didn't even care about the job. Yeah. And so I was like, well, what do you really do to make your money then? And he told me I sell insurance. And so at that point, I'm like, I want to sell insurance. Yeah. How do I sell insurance? This sounds great. Yeah. So he was like, okay. And the only instruction I got was go get your license and then I'll tell you. That was it. So then I was, you know, at home trying to figure out how do I get my insurance license, and, you know, Googling it all online, found out through Kaplan. I ordered a book in the mail, listened to an audio disc, you know, old school. Yeah. Went and did all of it, found out how to do it, took my test, got my insurance license, and a month later went back and talked to this guy and was like, hey, I got my license now, so show me how to make money. Yeah. So he did. So he took me to an agency, got me appointed. After a while, I stumbled into a job with United Healthcare. Yeah. And I was first appointed to them as an independent agent. And then they had a position come open to where it was a W-2, full-time position, a lot of hands-on training, all that kind of stuff. And it was a pay cut from what I was making. Yeah. And it was like, oof, do I really want to make a $20,000, $30,000 pay cut?
Yeah.
Because door-to-door pays good money, as we all know. I mean, it's funny because the door-to-door guys get a bad rap, but you can make a lot of money doing door-to-door sales.
Yeah.
Love it. So I had to take a pay cut to go take this job at United Healthcare, which I did.
Yeah.
So ended up taking the pay cut just so I could get in and learn. So I was willing to take a $30,000 pay cut just to figure the business out.
Now, were you married at this time?
Uh-huh.
Any kids yet?
Not quite yet. That's right when
getting
this was all
close,
happening.
right?
Yeah, getting close. And just about to start having, and it was right around that time, having our first kid. It's a little fuzzy. Those years are rough years, so it's all blurry.
Yeah.
But, took that job, took a $30,000 pay cut. And those are all spouse discussions where you're like, hey, we're making this money. I'm going to go take this pay cut and take this job. She's like, you're going to take a $30,000 pay cut? I don't think so, at first. And it's like, no, she was really supportive of, hey, if that's what it's going to take, then go do it.
Yeah.
So took the pay cut, took the job at United Healthcare. I was only there 6 months. And after 6 months, I was like, I love this business. This is great. I love selling it. And the difference was that I always done sales. True Green Chemlon, door to door, Comcast. You're selling products or whatever.
Yeah.
But on the Medicare side, I loved it because actually it's a noble profession if you're doing a good job. You're helping the senior citizens. It's a vulnerable population. You're helping them understand things. And at the end of the day, when you leave and you sell them a policy, you sell them, they're thanking you. Thank you so much. I saved $500 this year. I saved $2,000 this year. I can actually buy my groceries. It felt good. Yeah. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I really believed in the products because I was independent too, And the other thing is that paid residual. That was the big reason I got into it. Right. Is I hated always selling and you're only as good as your last paycheck.
Yeah.
So that's why I got into it. When I saw everything at United Healthcare after even 6 months, I was like, I'm out. I'm quitting and I'm going to go independent again.
Yeah.
So that was really that moment when I took 2 steps to becoming self-employed. First, I took a $30,000 pay cut. First, the second step was to completely ditch the salary and completely go independent. Yeah, and that was tough. And I remember it. It went from, within a 6-month period, it was wait, we're taking a $30,000 pay cut, to then the next step was, wait, now we have no income.
Yeah.
And that all happened within a 6-month time frame. And throw in the mix, my wife no longer working, who was a surgical assistant and doing phlebotomy and everything else and making pretty good money. Yeah. And going from a 2-income household to a 1-income or a no-income household.
Right.
That's what we did. Yeah. We did it the most difficult way possible.
So how stressful was it?
Oh, you probably know. It was incredibly stressful. Yeah. Like, those are the dark years you just don't even have a hard time talking about. Yeah. It's, when you say like, I went through all the nasty stuff of, even when I went independent, like telling my wife and saying, hey, you used to work and make this money, and I used to have this salary, and now we have none. So, and we actually even talked about it. We said, we're probably going to have to just sell our house, which we did. I mean, we had a house in Sandy. And in fact, at the time when I went independent, this was like, and I really went full steam into it, it was in 2008. Well, so at the time, I said, look, we're going to have to sell everything, go as cheap as possible, get by on nothing. And every single month I'm working, 80 plus hour weeks trying to make it work. And it didn't matter what you're doing. The revenue is not coming in. So we already planned on selling our house. But at the time, it went from selling our house very quickly into a short sell because guess what? People weren't buying houses in 2008. Right. So we ended up even doing that. Short sell, you can imagine first kid. And what people don't understand is I'm coming from health insurance is the bigger product we sell. I was one of those people back in the day that was uninsurable before Obamacare. So we're talking, whenever I hear people, pissing, moaning, complaining about this, that, and the other, usually it's been there, done that, And, I remember I actually ended up paying for 4 different pregnancies out of pocket, 2 surgeries, all that kind of stuff because we were not insurable at the time, right? So it was either you go on the state high risk pool or you're self-pay. Yep. So, we were self-pay all those years too. So, when you're asking how were those years, no income, $50,000 in medical debt, selling your house and renting a place for a few years. Right. And, if you think there was even diaper money, there wasn't.
No, it takes some fortitude, and some deep commitment. I think going down that road as well, when you realize that it's all on you, And you have a spouse, and they can be supportive, and but you give her a kiss, and you walk out the door, and you get in your car and turn Rage Against the Machine on, and pump yourself up, right, and just be like, it's on me today.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, in door-to-door world, and the same thing when I used to do door-to-door, there were days that you were in the zone and days that you just were not, right? Yeah. It's mental. Sales has always been mental.
Yeah.
And, you go to do door-to-door, and sometimes you'd sit there in the car for 15, 20, 30 minutes just like, oh, man. And sometimes it's you're turning on that music, you're doing whatever to get in the zone.
Yeah.
It was different, being self-employed, even more so. But I will tell you, I couldn't have done it without my wife being really supportive, because she always was. Even from day one, when I was talking about starting my own business, I went to her, and I mean, how many people at age, 23 or 24 or whatever, were making 6 figures a year, plus their spouse working in benefits? How many 23, 24-year-olds are out there making 150 grand a year with benefits?
Yeah, back then, very few.
Back then, not many.
Yeah.
And we were good. And so for me to say, yeah, that's fine, I want to give this up, throw it to the side, and I want to just roll the dice and see what happens. That was big, right? Yeah. And but I always told her, I said, I don't want to look back on life and just wonder, like, what if?
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man.
No. Like, I'm not going to sit back on my life with all that regret.
Yeah.
So she was like, yeah, I get it. If this is your chance and you feel like you can do it and you can take it, I support you. Go for it. Yeah. So she was always great, honestly. Yeah. So I really distinctly remember those years.
She's also a tough chick.
Yeah.
Like you got to be a little tough to do that stuff. I think to be supportive, you have to be tough.
Yeah. It is. And we tell people all the time who are going to be self-employed, like, if you don't have a supportive spouse, like if your support system's not there, you're not going to make it. Yeah. Because if they don't believe in what you're doing, then you just won't make it. You can go try to psych yourself up all day and do something and work hard. And when you roll through the door at the end of the day, sometimes that's 6 o'clock, sometimes that's 10 o'clock at night, you missed X, Y, or Z and you weren't there for something. If your spouse doesn't believe in what you're doing, you're just going to get resentment. You're going to get the hostility. You're going to get all that stuff.
Yeah, and a massive layer of pressure from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go get a job. Go do this. It's not working.
Oh, yeah. But back in those days, I would, same thing. You'd leave, and it was early in the morning. It was the young kids. I mean, we're talking, we had, my first and my second, those first couple of years, we had kids 2 years apart. And so you're talking like a newborn, and then all going from a newborn to having a 2-year-old and a newborn. Yeah. And you just didn't sleep much. My first was like super colicky, and so for a year I slept in a recliner, kind of, leaned back in a recliner every night, and you'd maybe get 3 hours of quality sleep a night. And by 7 a.m. I'm in the car driving to Logan. See, because back in the day when I was getting into the business, all the agents wanted to fight over all the leads in Salt Lake County, and I want to work in Ogden, or I want to work in Salt Lake or Provo, and I'm like, give me all the rural stuff, I'll take it. Yeah. So I would be in the car at 7 a.m. and my first appointment was sometimes Logan or something like that. At 9 a.m. I'm having my first meeting. Yeah. So I was at the door at 7 a.m. and I was usually not getting home until at least 7 p.m. at night, but usually 9. So, I mean, I even remember back in those days, I was just so tired. When we started having those younger years, when I had a 3 and a 5-year-old and all that kind of stuff, I would drag down the mattress from off the bed, and I would hang out with the kids. We'd have movie night. My wife would make popcorn, and movie night was really me hanging out on the mattress with the kids, watching a show and falling asleep. Right. So I was just done.
Just so you can hold them and and let them know that dad's in the room, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel you with that. Yeah, so most of the days were 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. And then Saturdays, I would always work my schedule until about noon or 1 p.m. Mm-hmm. And then at that time, that's when I went to the zoo with the kids. That's when I did an activity, went to the aquarium, hung out with them, played football with them, all that kind of stuff. But honestly, it was mostly Saturday afternoons and Sunday. That was it. Yeah. So, well, the cool thing about you that, anyone that knows you knows this. I mean, the weekends, man, you're always with the kids. Yeah. You're with the kids a lot at night, and, now that you're saying this, I can understand why. You had those years where you're just not there.
Yeah, and they didn't realize it. Now it's like when I wake up in the morning, that was the deal. My wife has sacrificed a ton. Just like the guy who's putting in the work around the business, she's been behind the scenes sacrificing just as much. Yeah. So I now wake up with the kids usually, and I'm the one who's I like to make breakfast for the kids, hang out with dad, drop them off to school or something before I go to work. And I try to, you got to, that's the nice thing about owning a business, right? Yeah. You got to make your own schedule, around the 80 hours a week you're working.
Yeah. Right.
But it's usually like sleep that I'm sacrificing or something else. It's not that time with my kids or family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So how long did you struggle for before you started getting up on the up?
I always tell everybody insurance is the best get rich slow scheme ever made. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants immediate gratification and make a ton of money at first. It's usually year 3 when people are making good money. In our business, you sell that first year, you get compensated like an initial payment. And then usually the second year, you're, obviously doing the same thing where, you're making new policy sales, but you're getting paid for the prior year's policies. By the time you're at about year 3 and you got 2 years in the rear of policy renewals plus your new business, year 3 is about when you're doing good. Yeah. And that's how it was with me. Year 3, I was doing really good. But really, I never filed a BK. Everybody was telling me, hey, all this kind of stuff, you had all these problems, you had all these medical bills. It's not your fault, Dan. It's not your fault that you couldn't get insurance and you just file a BK. And no, I didn't do that. That's a shortcut. Life doesn't have shortcuts. I was raised that way, right? So no, I paid every freaking penny of it. So about year 3, I was making good money. By about year 4, I had already paid off, $50K in medical debt and all that kind of stuff. And, so everything from there for about year 3, year 4 was just smooth sailing. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
So it just it's better and better and better from there.
So what year did you start hiring people?
Boy, that would be, we would have to ask Mr. Brian Smith. I forget what year that was.
Was he your first guy?
Well, I hired a temp or two before that. But you finally get to that point as like a sole proprietor, right? Where you're doing everything and you're wearing all the hats and you're the marketing department and you're the admin and you're doing.
And the janitor and
everything. You clean the toilet, you do it all, right? And I still have the opinion that I'm not above any of it. I'll do it all, and that's, when you run your business, you should. If someone's sick or guess what? At the end of the day, it falls on you, right? And but Brian, I had to ask him. Boy, I think it's been maybe 9 years, something like that. I think it was probably. So I had been an individual producer from like 2007 to 2011. It was probably 2012 or 2013 when I hired my first employee. Yeah. And it was really because that's when I really started an agency, and I was actually. It's now like. I'd gotten to the point where I was very well established as a insurance agent who was writing policies and having success that way, and I had a big clientele. And I think within the first 3 years, I think I had about 1,000 clients already that were just active. So
that's really good, right?
It's good. Yeah, if you're a field agent, especially back in the day, back then, I was in the top couple percentile in the whole country as far as selling those policies at the time. So after a couple of years, I had a big clientele, and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to go on to the next phase of business. So I'm going to step away from being a producer writing the business. And a lot of it came down from these insurance companies who were actually telling me, saying, hey, you're kicking butt, you're awesome. And it wasn't just that you were selling, it's how you're doing like a needs analysis, how you're actually helping people, your retention rates, how you're doing things. You should be helping us help other agents. You should get other agents. You need to train them. You need to teach them how to do this. So when I was kind of starting to get some encouragement from the insurance company saying, you should help us do that, I thought, maybe I really should. And you kind of get to the point where, after you've gone into a consultation, 1,800 times over the last few years, it kind of gets vanilla. Yeah. So, at that point I was ready for a new challenge, right? I mean, once you're proficient at something, you want to, move on to the next. So I was like, jumping into this agency thing was like almost, again, starting anew in a different business, because it was a completely different model. The revenue model was completely different, and everything changed. Yeah. So at that point, that's when I needed to hire an employee, because I really hired Brian. He was, victim number one that I said, hey, and I trusted him. And I said, hey, I need to have you step into the business, have you help me manage my existing clientels and everything. I need to make sure they keep getting good service. They're taken care of. We keep that revenue in place while I focus on growing agents, recruiting, training, all that other stuff, because I can't do both well. So that was why I needed to hire my first employee. Yeah, perfect. So what roles did Brian take on? He had about 9 roles, just like I did. But I mean, the first was, he had a Obviously, my existing clients, we had that kind of handoff phase for about 2 years where we had to kind of start sending out notifications and picture of both of us on there and say, kind of, here's your real estate team kind of idea. Here's your insurance team. And, we're adding other people to continue to provide you better value. And I had to have that phase out where, there's certain clients and people that just want to talk to you, right? Which I get. And I'd have to say, hey, the truth is I'm booked out 3 weeks and I'm happy to come there and help you. Brian can come there in the next 3 days to help you, but if you want to wait for me for 3 weeks, we're cool. I'm cool with that. And I had to go through that phase for a while. And then after about 2 years, people kind of start to build that trust and like, oh, okay, I still got good service from this guy. I can use him. Yeah. So we did that phase handoff. That was his first job, was really helping to service those clients in every aspect, going to do client reviews, answering the questions, all the customer service. If a phone call came in, hey, how much is my copay for this? Yeah. I need to change my policy. He handled all that aspect for me. But then in addition, Brian as an agent started to become better than just your average agent as well. He was learning from me and being under my roof and kind of getting that mentorship as well. And so then Brian started kind of also helping and training some of these insurance agents that we were bringing on. So Brian would help with anything from administrative stuff, tasks, mail pieces, anything out there, to even stepping in and starting to help train other agents in, here's how you do a consultation, here's the questions that you ask, here's how you ask for the close. And so eventually he kind of was helping me in a couple aspects of the business.
Oh, very cool. So
recruiting, mentorship, training, day-to-day, office, admin, retention, he was doing it all.
So one thing I kind of like to emphasize, especially when I talk to business owners, is how much responsibility do you feel for Brian to be successful and like to pay his bills and his family to go to school and go on vacation and have, you know what I'm saying? It's the whole, as a business owner, right? Like when the buck really stops with you, I think that what that means is, you have X amount of employees underneath you and you are responsible for their families. Yeah.
And anybody who's ethical and moral should feel that way, right? As a business owner. And I did. I wear that every day. Yeah. And honestly, over time, like you always have that feeling that, over time you start to not worry about yourself as much. At first, when you're starting your business, like you're worried about, I need to make enough money to even put food on the table. I mean, in reality, I got to pay my utilities. Like I said, I was in debt to my eyeballs, and dude, those I wouldn't change it, but man, those years were hard. You could not even see light at the end of the tunnel. It was ugly. But once you get past that phase to where you're making good money and everything else, and you're starting to hire on people, and they're coming to the office every day, and you see them working for the company and giving their best effort and working their butt off, you feel like you take that home with you. Every morning when you wake up, you got to make sure they're taken care of. Yeah. Like if they're taking care of the business, you got to take care of those people. And it's a heavy burden. And the more and more you get, the more and more you only want, and as you see your business doing better, you only want to take care of your people more. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Can I start adding in additional PTO days? Can I start giving them more vacation days? Can I start, giving them better health insurance? Can I start, giving them other company perks and stuff like that? Because especially, you have those employees that just, hey, I'm here punching a clock 9 to 5, like whatever, and they're not invested in the company. Yeah. They're really not. But the ones that you see that maybe show up earlier to work than they need to, that stay a little bit longer, that go the extra mile, that really are doing a phenomenal job. Yeah. Dude, the business exists because of them.
Yeah. You can also see the growth in them. Yeah. Right. You can tell the guys in your business that know the business well. Yep. Between the guys who are just doing what you tell them to do.
Well, and the people who approach you and say, I love this, I want more opportunity, I want to grow more. Yeah. How can I get to that next level with your company or with this business or with this industry? And I've actually even had some people that, they've left, and we've had those clear conversations about, I'm a smaller firm and I'm a small business. And, sometimes there's huge firms out there that give them a huge opportunity or a stepping stone, and when they approach them, I've had those employees come to me with those, and they feel so terrible about it. Like they feel horrendous about approaching me and saying, Dan, like I just feel awful telling you this, but I got this other job. I wasn't looking. I got headhunted. This is what it is. And they've got like their head down and they're really, and I think they've been surprised because I'm excited for you. That's really cool. Like we're going to be fine. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Like we're going to replace you. We'll get somebody else in here. But for you, Dude, that's great. That just tells me that you're sought after. Obviously, they saw something in you, that you're obviously valuable to them. And if they got the means to give you a $40,000 pay raise and give you a big promotion, I'm happy for you. So we've had those employees where, obviously we're doing something right when people want to come headhunt them. Yeah. And they've gone elsewhere. And a lot of times it's with insurance companies. Some of these companies that I'm a vendor for, and they see my staff, and then they come and cherry pick some staff members and stuff. That happens. Yeah. But we really don't lose our staff members to like competitors or anything else. It's usually the insurance companies that we're a vendor for. Yeah. So, but that happens, and you do love to see the employees who want the drive. So if anybody listens to this podcast and they're going, hey, how do I level up in life? And if it's not starting your own business, even within a company, they need to have like that conversation with their boss, their employer, and be like, hey, this is where I am. Yeah. I have a personal goal. I want to make more money. I want to get these skills. How do I become more valuable for the company? What could I do to earn more, get a pay bump, a promotion, something like that? As an employer, I love having those conversations. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think people who don't treat their employer as a mentor are insane. I know. Or they're happy where they're at, I guess. But yeah, if you're in a business and you want to make more money, you just go to the owner, right? Or your direct boss, depending on how big your organization is, and just say, hey, I'd like to make more money. What can I do to affect the bottom line and get a commission off of it? There's not an employer in the world that's going to be like, oh, we don't really do that here.
I know.
I mean, we're kind of happy with how much money we make. We're not really growing. You know what I mean? I mean, that conversation never happens. They go, worst case scenario, they're going to say, well, let me think about it and I'll get back with you. And then if you stay persistent with them, it's like, hey, I know you're super busy and like, I know there's all these, items that you want to get done. Just point me in the right direction. I'll figure it out and bring it back for approval. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, every business can sell more. You can always add a product line. You can always, add a service. I mean, buy a competitor. You want me to go negotiate buying a competitor and I'll take a commission off of it,
Or even that employee is going like, well, then what other positions are you going to be hiring for in the next year or two? Like, what is that pay scale? How would I be the person that qualifies for that? I mean, or again, how can I increase the company's bottom line? And if I do that, like, can I get a pay? Yeah, it's all in the numbers, right? Yeah. If you can justify a reason for it, there's not a business owner out there that says, hey, I'm going to increase the bottom line by $300,000 in revenue and I want a $20,000 pay raise. You go, done.
Yeah. It's not hard to think about. Yeah. I mean, one of the funnier sides of business, right? If you're surprised why you got let go from a business or fired, it's like you were not doing a good job, and even, we had COVID happen, 2 years ago or whatever, where business went all haywire and crap. And it's like, dude, most people kept their people, except for like maybe restaurants and some of that kind of, those kind of industries. I mean, my business, your business, it was like, we were just trying to grab as many people as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. How many employees do you have? Or how many agents do you have?
Right now we have hovering right around the 2,000 mark of agents, throughout the country.
And they're all over there, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we have agents scattered all over from Hawaii to Florida, everywhere in between. With us being based out of Utah, obviously, I would say probably 300 to 400 of those agents are here in Utah, home based. Makes sense. We have a lot more of a name presence here in the market, so we end up getting a lot more. And just being here for as many years as we have for a decade, we just end up getting a lot more kind of natural referrals and growth and all that kind of stuff. Everywhere else, we have to focus on that business development more. Yeah. So, we have close to 2,000, and honestly, we have everything from call center business where we have headquartered here where they're calling all over the country. We have the actual agents who reside in those areas throughout the country, and then sometimes it's not often anymore, but sometimes we'll even sub out our contract, like we'll sub distribute, as well. Yeah.
So how do you find an agent?
Everywhere, to be candid. The best agents I've ever found are salespeople. It's just we find them everywhere. I've actually recruited servers at a restaurant. I've recruited the personal trainers, people at a gym that are sitting there trying to help people better themselves, and they want to help people and everything else. Whenever I find somebody that is good at very personable, good at eye contact, where they sell something really. Whenever I have a server who comes out to the restaurant and they're like, hey, before y'all get really full, I just want to bring out the platter here and I want to show you our desserts. This one's my favorite, this, and this. Yeah. So make sure you save room for it. Whenever I have a server that's actually doing that, I'm going, dude, I need to hire you for this. Like, you are way underpaid for what you're doing.
Right.
So I recognize good salespeople everywhere I go. And I really do. It's just like I feel like my business and the insurance world, it's a career that's been way better to me than I ever even imagined. Like, I thought that I would do well and be successful, and like anything you put your mind to, you're like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to succeed. It's treated me far better than I even imagined. Yeah. And so because of that, I'm going, I want to share that with anybody I come in contact with. This is a great business. You should get into it.
Yeah.
Especially when you see these people doing a great job and you know that they're very underpaid.
Right.
So I find them everywhere. But I mean, realistically, we're marketing everywhere all the time. We, as an insurance agent, you're licensed with the state, right? So you have a professional license, just like in real estate or, your GC or whatever, you have that license number. So we have to report our personal information to the state. So someone could look me up, Utah Department of Insurance, whatever, you'd see my name, my info, depending on the state, phone number, email, all that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of it's public record.
Yeah.
So again, depending on the state, but we actually go through and we've created a huge marketing database depending on all 50 states. And so we'll go through and we kind of have our own internal marketing database. It's aggregated from everywhere. So we're constantly marketing everywhere from social media. And in our business, you have something called an NPN. It's your national producer number. It's unique.
Gotcha.
Kind of like if you're doing mortgages and you have that number or whatever. So it's just like in the insurance business. So we create our big databases, and then it's everything from email blasts to social media to we travel to markets, put on events, buy steak dinners, take people to Topgolf. But really probably half of it's our efforts, and then the other half is probably word of mouth. When you start working with an agent and you're treating them well and they're having success, and then they have other people who want to get in the business, we're getting those referrals from people, from other insurance carriers too, when they're like, hey, there's a couple different choices, but if you're doing a good job for somebody, they're going to want to send you referrals.
Right.
So we get it from kind of everywhere, man.
Yeah.
So I would tell you we typically have a marketing funnel of people who have opted in. They've seen our ads. They've filled out like a web form. We have their permission to contact, that kind of stuff. We grow that funnel, and we have thousands of agents nationwide in that funnel. And, we have VPs and employees that's their job constantly to be bringing on new agents, and not just bringing them on, but then walking them through that whole onboarding process, getting them to the point of training and success and trying to sell and make money.
Yeah.
And so that's their full-time job. And so I would say we usually convert, depending on the week, anywhere from 3 to 10 agents per week, just pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Of agents that are jumping in and onboarding.
And you're constantly training. That's one thing that we've talked about a lot.
Constantly. And it's unfortunate because it is a hard business. In fact, this guy Randy that got me in, he just told me the first time, he's like, it's a tough ass business.
Yeah.
It is. And if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Right.
But they can't. And so we just have and I believe some of the industries that are most comparable would be like real estate, right? How many real estate agents are out there and they don't have a pot to piss in? They just don't make it. And they don't understand that you can't just be a weekend warrior,
right.
Listing a house here and there and you're going to have all the success. It's just not going to happen. And our business is the same way. Your income potential is unlimited, but you're not going to go make it working 6 hours a week part-time.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you got to commit.
Yeah. And so we have all these agents that jump in and they have this perception that I got my insurance license and now I just have a license to print money. It's just give me the money, let it rain. They get a license and suddenly they're going, okay, Dan, I got my license now. Go ahead and just send me all these leads that I can just talk to and sell. Mm-hmm. You're like, this is not the way this business works.
Yeah.
If you want somebody to just shovel and feed you leads all day, that's called a job, and there's employers for that, and you can go get a job somewhere.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people who kind of, like other industries, they wash out because it's, and again, year 3 is when people really start to make good money. A lot of people can't get past 2 or 4 weeks of having an income interruption, let alone 1-2 years.
Right. Right.
So we just find that in the business. There's a lot of.
What do you think your washout rate is?
It's like most sales. It's 80-20, right? I mean,
is it? Yeah.
You bring in 10 people, and what you really find is over a course of 2 years, but you bring on 10 agents who are going to sell the product, and we do everything we can possible. I mean, we give them technology, we give them training, we have multiple people who are responsible to kind of help them along the way, teach them how to we always tell agents, hey, there's a couple of ways to get leads. You can we'll teach you how to go self-gen them for free. So you either have time or you have money.
Yeah.
If you have money, you can go buy leads, and we'll show you all the vendors and where to go and buy as many as you want. If you don't have money, then you probably have time.
Right.
We'll teach you how to go and develop all your own local lead sources and everything else. And the reality is most people either don't have money, and then when they find out that they're going to have to do the work and put in the time, they don't want to do that either.
Yeah.
So within the first probably 6 months, 50% wash out usually.
Yeah.
And then from there, you have half your people writing, and let's say you bring on 10, 5 are gone within the first 6 months. And then those other 5 are still kind of struggling along, kind of new to the business. You'll always find that 2 or 3 become really good agents. So we have a 20 to 30% success rate, right?
Yeah.
And 1 or 2 can kind of get lost along that way that year, And it's usually not that they have any angst towards us or anything else. It's usually just, it's a really hard business. And, they start puttering along and they've made 20, 30,000, 40,000. They're kind of they're slow growing it. And then usually what happens is it's rough. And then an opportunity comes their way like an employer, especially last year, these last 2 years, the labor market. Somebody comes by and offers them a sweet gig, work from home. Hey, make 100,000 a year. Here you go. And they're like, this grind's been pretty rough for the last 4 months. I'm gonna take that gig.
Yeah.
That's usually what we see.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I could see, one of the things you said, 2 to 4 weeks, people start getting real angsty, and it's like, that's a major barrier to entry onto owning your own business, no matter what. I mean, you really got to commit to 2 years if you want to start something up.
Mm-hmm. And
unless you have a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, and that's just the startup. That's usually like the phase 1. That's just like the first 2 years is like, you just are trying to figure out, what's what. Mm-hmm. You sometimes don't even know the right questions to ask. You're making all those early mistakes that you don't even know that you're making at the time. You don't figure out you made mistakes until it's been a year or 2 and it's lost you a lot of money.
Right.
And so I think that the first 2 years, that's when it's just that figure out stage. And then it's usually like, okay, we kind of joke about it, but it's kind of becoming a more seasoned hunter, right? It's like there's business that you could have gotten, once you've been in the business for 5 or 10 years. If you would have known that earlier on, you could have gotten it.
Yeah.
But you don't have that experience.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys do, what does your training look like inside your business? So say someone's like, hey, Dan, I want in, I got my license. Mm-hmm. Day 1, what are they doing? So
typically, as far as training goes, we have every one of our sales VPs has been in the business sold. It's either Brian, who was a market point agent at Humana for years, or this guy Steve, who's been a VP, or anyway, whoever it is, they have actual real life experience in doing it. So they are earmarked and they have accountability for every single agent on their team. So typically, when they onboard with our company, they get like a launch email, and the email kind of instructs them on all their next steps. Hey, your background and your credentialing with all these insurance companies is going to take anywhere from 3 weeks to sometimes a year. But really it's a 60 to 90 day window where I'm submitting your contract to, like Aetna, for example. They're taking that information off your social and they're performing their own background on everything. And depending on how many licenses you have, let's say you have 17 licenses, 17 states you can sell in. Well, the more states that you're appointed or backgrounded in, it takes longer. Right. So by the time you come out of that whole background check and they say, yeah, we're okay letting you sell and represent our product at Aetna, it's a few weeks. So sometimes the one thing I do hate about my business is there's all these very slow delays from the insurance carriers, and the agents think it's us. And it's really not. Right. We're at their mercy. We take all the paperwork. We have to, check certain databases, to make sure that they don't have like felonies or anything that, would prohibit them from selling. But once we're done, we pass it off to the insurance company and we're at their mercy. Yeah. Right. So let's say I take your packet to 10 different insurance companies. Well, within 3 weeks, you might have a writing number for 3 of them.
Right.
But the other 7, they're still in process. So it takes a little bit of time. But during that time, we give you a launch email. We kind of direct people to our online library. We have a bunch of videos, resources, self-serve. Hey, you should start reading the Medicare and You handbook, start learning about it. Here's a bunch of videos. I actually made a lot of the training videos. So did Brian or Mike or their staff members. So you can start kind of self-serving. And then we have Zooms every single week where, if you're new within 90 days, we have a specific meeting, kind of town hall kind of question where all these agents who are onboarding, can jump on for an hour and just start asking questions. Hey, where do I go for this resource? What's my next step? I've already done this. What do I need to do next? And we're kind of pointing them in the right direction.
Yeah. And then if they're from out of state, we typically will do a 2-day kind of like a launch getting started training, like an orientation. We'll do it here. And we make a deal with these independent agents. First of all, they can contract with us and kind of be an employee, or, we own their business. And if they want to do that, we'll give them certain extra resources, right? But if they just want to be fully independent, own their policies, own their book of business, great. We'll put on a 2-day orientation, and just say, hey, it's coming up in 3 weeks. You get your flight and hotel out here. We'll pay for everything else while you're here. And if you sell 15 policies within your first 90 days of coming to that training, we'll reimburse you for all your travel expenses. So,
cool.
So we try to actually bring them in here and give them a full in-person 2-day extra training as well.
Yeah.
And then after that, once they've kind of gotten all of our online library videos, everything to watch, training, they've come out to a 2-day, launch or orientation. From that point, we also have a Slack channel. So, we keep these different Slack channels available so they can jump in at any time and say, hey, everybody, where do I go to find X, Y, or Z? What do you do in this circumstance? There's a whole community we've created in Slack where agents just pop in and help them out and be like, oh yeah, this is what you do. Here's the link for it. So we have that whole community for them.
Yeah.
And then the VP, the rep, that's their rep, is always keeping tabs on them. Hey, your production, you wrote 2 last month. Good job. Yeah. What can I help you with? Do you need some marketing dollars? Do you need X, Y, Z? Or hey, you've made 0 phone calls. You've done nothing. Are you still in the business, or what's going on? So we try to do our best to keep tabs on these agents. Just we're not mind readers, dude.
Yeah.
We don't know who's in it to win it and who's.
Well, and people are independent.
Yeah.
Your agents are independent, so they got to wake up every day and go and do their thing.
Yeah, we have no idea if they're in it to win it and just struggling, or if they're just maybe looking for another job and spending their time on Indeed instead of out prospecting. I don't know.
Right. So switching gears, what does your typical day look like? You're the business owner now. You established business, great business. What does Dan do all day?
Oh, yeah. As you know, it depends on the day, but usually my day usually starts around 7 a.m.-ish is usually when I'm up. I'm not really a morning person. I wouldn't classify myself as the 5 a.m.er person, but I'm usually up around 7, and just because of East Coast, and my phone's usually ringing by 7 a.m. It just is. So usually by 7, it is like I've got more to do than I can handle. By 7 a.m., I'm on phone calls, emailing. So sometimes I'll go right into the office at 7, depending on like right now in summer, I'll go in a lot of times very early because I don't have to go and drop off kids to school or anything else. Yeah. So I'm in usually early, but you'll typically find me, unless I'm in meetings at the office, anytime between 7:15 to 9, somewhere in that range. Yeah. Sometimes I run to my home office really quick and I'm already firing off emails and phone calls at 7:15, 7:30. Yeah. And into the office, usually we have trainings. I'll have usually meetings, follow-ups with different insurance companies. Typically each one of them I have my national reps, and I'll have checkpoint phone calls, all that kind of stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a sales organization. So these insurance companies, they all want their piece of the action, right? Hey, we want our sales. What's your distribution like? They always want to track, are you adding or losing agents? Are you adding sales? What's your growth like? We got to hit our bottom line. So, so there's all that pressure from these insurance companies. So I'll have a lot of those follow-up phone calls. And so that's my job, is to kind of tell them how our relationship is going as a vendor. Here's the things that they need to do with their policy. Sometimes there's that back and forth of, hey, well, in these states, you don't have a very competitive product. Our sales are down because, you're getting your clock cleaned from this other company, right? Yeah. So that's usually a lot of back and forth and understanding what's happening in certain territories, states, producers, figuring out what they need to do with their benefits in order to be more competitive, all that kind of stuff.
So a lot of overall sales strategy and making sure everything's right in the ship every day.
Yeah, with those. And then obviously the next is just from a high level, just different staff, the initiatives that we're doing, and just making sure that everybody's on pace. I hate meetings, and we've tried to really avoid having as many meetings for a meeting. Yeah. But we'll typically have one staff meeting on a Friday. And the reason I would say this is, as a smaller business too, I like the idea of quick scrums every once in a while. I hate if you had 6 meetings with your team throughout the week, it'd be terrible. But the one meeting I do like, even when stuff's not quite as applicable,
it always helps, like my contracting team, for example, and licensing, it's good to have them in the room with the sales team, the guys who are actually talking to agents and recruiting, because sometimes these departments are not aligned. The contracting team is like, hey, we would appreciate it if you only give us packets of agents that are this way, this done, make our lives easier. And they're like, no, if we do that, we're only going to recruit half as many agents. So there's always that give and take. It's kind of nice to have different staff members and departments in a room, so to speak, every once in a while, so both sides can hear each other. And I always like it that the perspective of what their maybe job or role is, they're hearing the job and the role and the expectations of other people and what their day-to-day is like and their challenges, because, you know, you lose staff members or something like that, you need somebody to backfill and jump in too. So I like having those meetings once a week. But typically I'll have I will have a meeting with my technical team, and we'll be going through our website and what's up to date, what's in implementation, what's in the staging area, when's the launch date. So, and then going through like lead distribution, sales, you know, so I have multiple meetings set up throughout the week, like one with, my brother's my president of sales right now. Hey, overall sales, how much is coming from direct field agents? How much is coming from our call center? How much is coming from sub-distribution? Are we hitting our targets? Are we hitting our goals? So I'll have that meeting sometimes. I have my carrier meetings. I have my meetings with my technical team. I have my meeting with my contracting team. So it's a lot of meetings. In the meantime, I have agents, vendors, other relationships, and my phone is ringing all day long. So if I'm not in a meeting, I'm usually catching up on a report, following up with phone calls. I would say I usually leave the office around 5, get home, and that's my family time when I'm with the kids every day, my wife. And I try to really like honor that family time from 5 till about 9. And then depending on the situation at home, like let's just say my wife's like, hey, I'm going to watch this show or something. I'm like, okay, well, get some work done. And I really will work till sometimes 1, 2 in the morning. That's what people don't understand, is because I'm so busy in meetings and everything else in the day, all my busy work, financials, all that kind of stuff, 11 p.m., midnight, that's when a lot of that stuff's getting done. But that's the typical day.
How often are you reviewing your financials?
Now I have a pretty good barometer of what's happening, but usually it's weekly, and I'm looking at the P&L and the balance sheet, all that kind of stuff at the end of the month on everything. But I have a pretty good idea as far as everything running.
Because are you using Domo?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you like Domo?
Love Domo. So
maybe you could explain what Domo is.
So Domo is like, as far as like a data lake, they're a local company actually here in Utah. I don't want to overtalk them too much, because then they're going to really ding me on my renewal on my contract in 2 years. They're expensive. So to anybody listening, we love Domo. It's been great. It's just, I hate how freaking expensive it is and how much we pay for it, because we pay a lot of money for Domo. But it's like a data lake. So we have so much data, and from like our perspective, like the business, you really need to be able to get your arms around data all the time, whether it's financial data. For us, it's sales. We need to be able to have insights of what our reps selling. What are they selling now? What did they sell last month? What did they sell July of this year versus last year? Why is that different? And we need to dig into data of why was this insurance company selling more this year versus last year? And I mean, there's so much to do with data that we need to know all the trends. And not only that, well, this rep sold 100 apps and this one sold 80 apps, but this is a better rep because their retention rate is better. It's all in the numbers, because people make the mistake of, well, this agent sold the most, so I'm going to give them more money, back them more, give them more financing, all that. Well, but if they have bad quality, low retention, a lot of complaints, all that kind of stuff, you're like, actually, this is a better rep and I didn't know it. If you don't have that data. So Domo is really our data lake, where you can get data lakes out there anywhere. Like you can store your data somewhere, and then a lot of people use like Tableau, or they use Power BI or something to, illustrate and visualize their data. Domo does all that. So it's kind of like this quasi platform, and I'm like we'll call it like I'm a 6 out of 10 as far as tech goes, right? But instead of having like a SQL database or something like that, all of our data goes in there. So I get a commission statement in a certain format from United Healthcare. Maybe they give me 50 rows of data, every month of my commission statement. Humana's got a different format. Cigna has a different format. In the insurance world, all these insurance carriers, they live in their own bubble, and it's their world, and you just live in it. What we have to do as a vendor is really find a solution to consolidate that all into one place that's really workable. And do something with the data. So we aggregate all of our data into Domo, and I have a business analyst who's a ninja. He's great. And essentially, he writes code. And so between my 3 guys, I think they write R, Java, SQL, Python, HTML. I mean, pretty much any code, between the 3 of them, they write it.
Yeah.
But Domo does a great job. They have like an inline editor. They have like Magic ETL. They have all these different tools that make writing that chain of code a lot easier too.
Yeah.
So they can transform all my data into something really workable. And so Domo not only just stores it, but actually he can easily make visualizations, cards, make that data very accessible for us. And it's not even just that from the data perspective of sales and revenue and everything else. We're using it to even flow in data from like the National Insurance Producer Registry for our agents. We'll flow in data. We'll use, some technologies to take that data, auto-populate it and flow it into our website, create dashboards, analytics. It's pretty cool. But I mean, Domo's where we live out of for lapse reporting, projections, production, all that. If I go to have a meeting with if I sub-distribute to another agency and they're like, hey, I'm going to write you 1,000 sales this year, I need some money. I'm going to go dig into Domo, see how much did they actually sell last year, the year prior, what are their trends, how much did I give them, what's my cost per sale. I'm going to find all that in Domo.
Yeah.
And again, Domo is as good as you make it. So, if you have a really good analyst that can use it, it's been a lifesaver for us.
Yeah.
But again, if Domo is listening to this podcast, it's terrible, it sucks, and they need to give me a cheaper price when I go to renew it.
Right. We're throwing you boys out.
Yeah.
So what do you think, what's the best part of being the business owner right now?
It's exciting for me right now. Like I'm like our core revenue model has been on, and really the way we make money is, and that's the thing when you talk about agents and what kind of training do they get, the way we actually make money is when they sell a policy. Until they sell a policy, I make no money. So if you think about my business, let's say you're an agent in Texas, I have to typically go out there and paying all the staff to aggregate marketing databases and know who are those agents. And then I have to have technologies and systems to market to you. I have to have all the staff to license and onboard. So maybe you saw marketing and promotion from us, you filled out your information. We had to have a staff member follow up with you, explain things, spend 10 hours walking you through the process, contract, and then my staff has to take all your documents, spend maybe 20 work hours to get you appointed or contract with all these insurance companies. I might be $1,000 in before you've done anything, you know? And so then these insurance agents, then we're having to sit there and train them and provide them with all these resources, technology and training in order to get them to sell. And when they finally make a sale, they get paid revenue and I finally make some revenue.
Right.
So anyways, it's kind of a long process that people don't understand. That's how I really make my money.
Yeah.
Even though I'm investing money into staff or building technologies at the end of the day, if I invest into a technology like we have e-apps and enrollment tools and all this stuff, as an insurance agent, it sucks to go try to figure out like, oh, is Aetna the best product for them? Or maybe it's Humana. Nope, maybe it's Molina. I don't know. Well, so we'll have tools that we pay for that will make it so you can quote and enroll and everything all in one place.
Yeah, and do it quickly.
Yeah, we eat that cost and we just pay for it. We give agents a CRM because guess what? Most of our agents, I love you all. I'm a sales agent myself. Most of them are knuckleheads, anyways, but they won't store stuff in a place that's like HIPAA compliant and all that kind of stuff. So we have to provide a lot of that and it's really expensive.
Right.
So again, that's where our revenue model has been, investing into all these things, trying to get agents to sell. Now we're kind of focusing on monetizing some other things. We're growing some other lines of business, and we're finding there's other ways within my same industry where we can kind of create different products and services, and we can really monetize off of that. So that's what I'm working on currently, and it gets me excited because, again, like when I was an agent, I was looking for my next challenge of, I'm going to start this agency now. Oh, and I have agents in 5 states. Oh, I need to get a new state. And there was always something, but now I have agents that sell in all over the country. I think we book sales in all 50 states every year now. So as you're a business owner, you're kind of hitting these like checkpoints of like, what's my next phase?
Yeah.
I've started to check all these boxes and now I'm kind of working on, well, what's next? Okay, these new lines of business and things that I haven't sold in the past, I'm not familiar with it. Now I got to learn them and become good at them. That gets exciting to me because it's a new something for me to be good at.
Yeah, it's challenging.
It is. And I'm going to go through all the struggles and pains and everything else. But so launching these new lines and other monetization models gets me excited.
Yeah. And see, one thing in your business that people will be interested to hear is you're always being chased by private equity trying to buy you.
Yeah, that's true. In my business, I kind of joke a little bit that most of my competitors they're either with the Crips or the Bloods. There's two kind of really big competing groups in my space. So in the senior market space, if anybody knows, there's some private equity firms that are really just like we're starting to see private equity in real estate. I mean, we're starting to see private equity they found that our business is a good business because with insurance, it's very predictable, and as far as cash flows and, actuaries and calculating what returns are and what the values are of policyholders, you're looking at things like law of large numbers.
Yeah.
Well, these private equity people, they're some of the smartest in the world. And they just know that it's very predictable, like our industry, and there's a lot of cash flow because, so they're attracted to it. It's a good business, and their idea, like everything, is you can grab 10, 20, 30 of them, roll them up, you get a lot of leverage. Yeah. And so they are. So they're constantly chasing them. I haven't sold my business. I'm privately held, but I would tell you that 95% of my competitors have all sold. They're owned by private equity. Yeah. So it's a different phase for sure, because when I'm seeing they're talking to insurance agents or other insurance agencies, and they're saying, hey, what's your value prop? Or why am I going to work with you instead of somebody else? Look, it's most comparable to real estate. Well, why am I going to go work with Exit Realty when I can go work with Keller Williams or whatever, different brokerages, right? You can go with. A lot of it is just because with so many private equity acquisitions, it's all become like one homogenized pile of crap, and by that I mean there used to be 100 FMOs out there, and you had a different maybe CRM technology here or a different value prop there. You really liked this person that owned the company there, and that's why you chose to do business with them. Right. So you had a different look and feel of that business partnership with them. Yeah. Now with all the acquisition, again, it's all homogenized. It's almost like these agents go like, well, if I go from here to there, all these tax IDs, they're all owned by the same entity on the back end. And so all they're doing is slowly over time, they're cost centering a lot, and private equity does what private equity does. They're going to make some money on this, a lot of money. Yep. And they're going to, consolidate, some of these same contracting centers. Hey, I have about 30 FMOs. And now I'm going to consolidate my licensing center into one place, and I can cut 70% of the staff that we're doing because we're going to be efficient and do it in one place. Yeah. And technology platforms, maybe we found that between these 30 acquisitions, there was 9 different CRMs. Well, we're going to cut contracts with 8 of them. We're going to pick the one we're going with, and that's what we're going to do. So, I mean, they're going through that process right now. I would say in my industry, they've been making heavy acquisitions for 3 or 4 years now. Yeah. And they're, again, making all those consolidation. So the nature of the landscape of my business and who I compete with is changing very quickly. Right. So it has definitely its challenges, headwinds, and problems for me, but I also get a lot of advantages too. I stick out like a sore thumb. Yeah.
It's also kind of nice too, because I think in my opinion, businesses are meant to be sold. Right. I'm not really a legacy business guy. I just think there's way more money to be made by moving your money and just keep your money moving, right? And so, a lot of small businesses, when it's time to sell, they kind of go, how do I do this, right? That's why there's a bazillion business brokers out there. You're in a distinct advantage where it's like you got guys knocking your freaking door down. Yeah. You just got to figure out when the right time to pull the trigger is.
Yeah. I mean, at any time, if I wanted to walk away, I could. Yeah. And that's the nice thing is I get emails every single week from different PE firms. I'm with this one, I'm with that one. And I have to explain to a lot of these knuckleheads, it's not even about the money. There's really been 2 acquiring firms, and one of them's backed by HGGC, and the other one's backed by TH Lee and GenStar. But essentially, these 2 firms have made so many acquisitions that they have so much leverage in the industry already and so many relationships with the insurance companies that if I made a deal with some of these other private equity firms, it would just be the money. That's all you're getting is the money and the payout. Whereas with some of these other firms, you're getting the money and the payout, but you're getting that leverage and you're getting some distinct advantages if you ever do it. Yeah. So it is unique that way. But if I ever wanted to sell, I could. I think that right now you're seeing like private equity and money and finance and capital right now with interest rates. I think you're seeing that this year people still have next to free money. I mean, even from private equity, they have cheap money to make a lot of acquisitions. Yeah. But I think if you start looking at going into next year and the year after, money's more expensive. That capital costs a lot more. So you're going to see valuations driving down.
Yeah.
So for me, I just think that like if you're not in this cycle right now, it wouldn't make sense for me to sell my business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one thing too that I, when we talk about business, because, we hot tub at your house all the time. But it's one of the things that's important for people to understand is like when you're in your industry, you need to be an expert.
Yeah.
Like if you're not, you're going to get ran over.
100%. And not even just now, but what's happening in my industry. It's weird. I have to stay attuned to politics, right? Because really at the end of the day, my firm has a contract with these insurance companies, but at the end of the day, with Medicare and everything else, all my oversight, it's like from CMS, which is like the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It's Health and Human Service. We have all this government oversight. Yeah. And so I actually even have to stay apprised to all the political bills, the lobbying efforts and everything happening because, for example, Democrat, like an administration that's Democratic, is always going to try to grow healthcare by like Medicaid. That's just what they want to do. It's how they do it. And so you just know if you have that type of an administration, they're going to expand Medicaid. It impacts our industry because then there's certain insurance companies who have more state Medicaid contracts than others. Right. They're probably going to get a benefit from that. They're going to be able to sell more product from that. So they can kind of just by the policies they make, pick more winners and losers in the industry.
Yeah.
So I have to be aware of everything happening, also funding, and you look at legislation and Medicare payments and everything else. First of all, I still love my business, and it doesn't matter who's in office, Republicans, Democrats, whatever. Neither one of them want to mess with the boomers and the senior population. They vote, and they don't want to mess with their benefits. So that's part of the reason that I love my business.
Yeah.
And even as we're in a recession right now, don't edit that because we're in a recession now. They don't want to say it, but we really are. We're starting that beginning of the recession. I actually love that. That's when I do great. I love recessions. I hate to say that because I know a lot of people hurt when it's a recession. But for my business, insurance isn't sexy. I mean, all these years, like you look at from like 2010 or 11 until 2020, I mean, it's gangbusters. And all these companies out there just throwing money, quick, easy, fast money. It's hard for me to attract an insurance agent and say, hey, get in this business and put in blood, sweat, and tears for 3 years and grow an awesome business when they can go do something else and make good money pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think that as the recession really settles in more and there's more industries that are impacted by this, that becomes more attractive. And so it's actually good for my business, and my business is like muni bonds or something like that. It's such a stable, safe thing that, it's recession proof.
Right.
The government, if they ever run out of money, they're just going to print more.
Yep.
So,
unfortunately,
it's not like they're not going to shovel it to the insurance companies and shovel it onto me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, we're running down to the end of the podcast. I ask every guest to give me their 2 minutes of best advice. I want you to tailor yours to someone who's like amping up, ready to start their own business. What's the best 2 minutes of advice you'd give them?
I would tell them that it's going to be the hardest thing ever in your life, and but it would be worth it, and that it won't feel like it at times. But here's the thing: when you're working for yourself, everything you do is for you. I've been sickened by the fact of how many insurance agents I try to get into business, and they benefit from all their own efforts, and it's amazing that they'll work harder for somebody else than they will themselves. I don't get that. So you're working for yourself. You got to eat what you kill. So, if you're starting your own business, plan on 70 plus hours a week, because that's what it takes. That's the best advice I can give, is work the 70-hour weeks. And you have to love the actual process of it. Don't just chase the money, because if all you're doing it for is to get the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you're not going to make it. So if you're going to do it, it has to be something that you're actually passionate about, that you like, and that you enjoy what you're doing. And if you don't love it, you're not going to put in the 70 hours a week, and you're not going to make it. And also make sure that if you're married, that you have a buy-in from your partner, because if you don't have their support, same thing, you won't make it. So that would be the advice I give them. Plan on 70-hour weeks. You have to love it, and you have to love the process, and you have to have the support from somebody. Last thing I would tell them, find your mentor. Find somebody that is in your business, somebody that's done it. Ask them the questions. You would be surprised at how many people will just go to lunch with you, will spend time with you, will give you advice. Find that person in your industry that's very successful, and offer to take them golfing or to lunch or whatever that might be to pick their brain. And I think you'd be surprised at how much good life advice they'll give you.
Absolutely, man.
So,
absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you for coming on the podcast.
You bet.
I can always count on you.
Likewise.
And we should be in a hot tub in a couple of days. Thanks again, my friend.
I know. You bet.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.